Hello, this is Greg Allison, Green Greg's, coming to you on the 11th day, it's 10th, isn't it? Here we are on the 10th day of June 2020. Time on deck is 1900 hours Central Daylight Time. And I have a special guest with us tonight. Our special guest is Jesse Murphy of DSR Farms. Now, Jesse is a young farmer that I've been admiring for some time for all the things he's been doing. He's got grass-fed beef, chickens, pork, rabbits, and a beautiful farm. It's the way farming ought to be. Animals actually out in the pastures and the grass, not in some big factory farm setup. So he's doing an awesome job. The only problem is cost. Feed costs and other things are really forcing them out of business right now. So maybe we'll get into this and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about maybe things like, if you're getting into farming, the things to watch out for, not to get into that kind of a situation. And we'll talk about kind of where the market's going, food prices, and it just so happens that Jesse's decided to go into aerospace, and he's hoping to be building these things right here. So we got plenty to talk about. In fact, Jesse and I may collaborate in the future on something dealing with that, and we can chat about that in a moment too. But ladies and gentlemen, I bring you a lot of these videos about what's going on with food prices and gardening. I do some videos on gardening, production of microgreens. I do videos on how to eat free from the weeds and trees. But it's planting season, guys. If you've not got all your seeds yet, I highly encourage you to get them and get them now. You can go to Tree Leaf Market. Tree Leaf Market has good seeds. They're non-GMO. They're heirloom seeds. You can plant them. Harvest seeds from a plant and get the same kind of plant back again. You won't get that with hybrid seeds. So Tree Leaf Market is an excellent source. They guarantee their seeds, and they got a real high rate for sprouting. Excellent rates on that. So Tree Leaf Market's an excellent source, especially if you're growing microgreens, because they got all kinds of supplies for that and other supplies too. So highly suggest you go to Tree Leaf Market. So we're going to get into this with Jesse here and see what's going on. So Jesse, tell us a little bit about yourself and DSR Farms and what's happening there. What got you interested in farming? How about starting with that?
Sure will, Greg. I appreciate the introduction. So my name is Jesse Murphy. I'm 32 years old, born and raised in Hartsville, Alabama, graduated from Danville High School. Married my wife, Jessica, almost 10 years ago now. And we've got 3 beautiful little daughters. And we decided about 6 years ago that we wanted to try building a backyard hobby farm to a scale that would support our household if that was our only source of income. And so while I was working full time, we dumped everything that our farm business made into itself again. And we doubled in production every year for about 6 years up to our current capacity, which is roughly 1,400 laying hens on pasture. And this year we were on track to grow about 10,000 broilers, but we're going to end up with around 3,000 or 4,000 in the end of the season, just because we're kind of calling it quits a little early. And there's a lot of things that led into that decision that we can get into throughout our discussion. It's a really kind of a multifaceted equation. There's a lot of moving parts. And when we added all the pieces together, we just decided that the best thing for our family to do would be to get out now while we can kind of get out clean and kind of reestablish ourselves as a family and try to make up for a little lost time.
Wow. So how much of it is just the increase in cost? Right now we're having a lot of inflation. We've got feed price. You mentioned feed prices when you was talking to me about this. How much? I've seen my feed prices go up. I buy rabbit feed and worm feed. Actually, I feed my worms in part along with the table scraps and coffee grounds and other things. I feed my worms these little this chicken feed. This chick starter feed. Actually, I get a non-GMO version of that. I've been watching prices go up from I think it started out around $9 a bag, something. Now it's like over 13 and going up.
A lot of it is the cost of production. I mean, everything that we buy is going up, like it is for other small businesses in different industries. The restaurant industry, of course, is closely tied to a lot of the same costs we have. But then, construction industry is going up. The cost to build a home is very high right now because of the way lumber is, and that can affect our cost too. If we have to build, certain infrastructure, we have to buy lumber, and so those types of things can have really, serious impacts on a farm like ours, that are just at that borderline scale level to support a family. And you have to be, when you're farming like this, you have to sell a lot of products to be able to support a family household, with it being the only source of income.
Yeah, amen to that. A lot of people don't realize that most businesses just operate on an 8% margin. That's all most businesses have for margin for profit. And anything can swallow that in a flash. And when you got all the prices going up like they are now, that makes it a real roller coaster. And a guy in the farm produce business like yourself, you've got to compete with a big agri who's factory raising everything, and you're doing it in the way it ought to be done, where the animals are out in the pastures and so forth. So what do you find is your main challenge? What's been your top challenge in the last year?
One of the biggest challenges we face is kind of like you hinted on there. We're constantly having to put so much energy and emotion into explaining to consumers why our products are priced the way they are, how precious certain cuts of meat are, because there's only a few pounds of those particular products for 1,000-pound animal, and it's just a lot of just consumer education about animal anatomy and what kind of percentages that you'll get of certain cuts from an average size pig that we would butcher, or how many meals you can get out of one of our large chickens, things like that. So our biggest obstacle is definitely consumer education, and then really trying to win the hearts and minds and the wallet of those customers, as we make them believers about the higher quality and the higher nutritional value and better taste and all of that for all of our products. And so it's really hard to try to put up that much energy to educate the average consumer.
Yeah, I understand that. This is why I tell people all the time in my videos, not every video, but many videos, I tell people, buy local, spend your money locally, support your local farmers, your local artisan, your local tradesman. Don't go to the big companies. You get better service if you go to the mom and pop shops and the small craftsman tradesman shops. If you're gonna get your AC fixed, you go to the big shop, you're gonna get some kid coming out who probably don't know which end of the screwdriver to use. I've been surprised with electrical support. If you're gonna hire an electrical contractor, but how about labor? You and your family pretty much run all this by yourself. Have you been hiring labor? Do you need to hire labor? How do you stand in that regard?
Well, that's a pretty simple explanation. In general, if we could pay somebody to do it, we would be able to pay ourselves more. So, if I could pay somebody to go do all this stuff, I could pay myself that, and I wouldn't be kind of in the situation where I am, where basically what happened this year is I just ran out of operating capital. And a business like ours is so liquid capital intensive. Without a good stack of money laying around at all times, you can really slip up and get your head below water, and then it's really
hard to pick back up. I know that. Even in my business, I've been off and on shipping worms around the country, but last year I had to shut down. I ran into a bunch of complications, and I tried to do a restart on the worm shipping just about a month ago, and I hit a bunch of snags, and it just didn't pan out. I've had to shut down again till probably this fall. And absolutely, it takes a lot of money to get this stuff up and running, and just you have to have capital sitting around. What a lot of people don't realize is that farming is the most capital intensive industry there is. You just got to have a lot of stuff to make it go, and you got to know how to do just about everything to make it work. You just showed me that you're out repairing your trailer right now, and I got a new trailer to grow microgreens in, and just had an AC unit put in the roof, and it's already leaking water. So it's always a lot of challenges to this, and there's always just a lot of hurdles to overcome. You said you were working full time when you started your farm?
Yeah. So when we first got our first few chickens, I got 5 chickens when I moved from an apartment in town back out to the country. Me and my wife, got us a little small mobile home and a few acres, and we started with 5 chickens. And then, with 5 chickens and just a married couple with 1 child, you can get overrun with eggs pretty quick, and that's what happened, which is what most people do. And then so I started taking eggs to work and selling those for a few dollars a dozen. And then before you know it, I was down at the flea market buying more chickens like all the crazy chicken ladies and guys out there. And it's turned into, thousands and thousands of chickens a year now. And, it's been fun. There's been a lot of roller coaster emotions along the way, but I was very fortunate when we started this that I had a really good career in the steel industry. My background is heavy industrial maintenance and HVAC is what my dad's done. He's on his own business for close to 20 years now. And so I've always been mechanically inclined and been able to get a job really quick. And when we started this, that's where I was at. And I quit there, and I kind of bounced around with a few little gigs here and there. But for the previous, I think 2, maybe 2.5 years, I've been at it full time. And it's been a roller coaster. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of hard times too. But we're ready, I think, to just close it up and move on to the next chapter.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll show some pictures of your farm. I'll do a share here with some things that you've got up on Google and other places. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna do a share. We're gonna go over here.
Yeah. Even though we're actually going out of business right now, we're still technically open, and we're having to basically sell a huge inventory. When you go to as many markets as we do, and when you do the online sales, you just have to have a large inventory. We've got about 80 different products. If you have to keep 100 or 200 pounds of each one of those products, before you know it, you got a lot of product on hand.
Guys, these aren't chickens in a chicken house. These are chickens in the yard. It takes a lot of more work to watch after them, maintain them, feed them. But look at this. This is a beautiful picture. These cattle are out in the pasture grazing like cattle ought to be. I've been by those feedlots that got out west with the dairies out in California and places like that. Man, they smell worse than a hog pen. You can smell those things from miles away. And you think, oh, this is where I'm getting my milk to drink from? Yeah, that's gross to me. But this is the dream of the way it ought to be on a farm, guys. And so it's kind of sad to see that he's got the challenges he's facing. And I'll tell you that here's what worries me is that Jesse's not the only farmer that's having to weigh these options right now. And as more farmers decide, like he's deciding, you're going to have less and less. Now, don't that look like a happy chicken? That's what you ought to be getting when you buy your chicken, guys. And see, he's got his meats here. Holly, if you guys got a chance, look, he's a lot of farmers markets, and including you. You've seen me talk to him at Madison City Farmers Market more than once. I've talked to him several times. There's his beautiful daughters. And I got to tell you, there's his wife and him. I got to tell you what, he used to come to the farmers market when he first started. He had a little counter cart that he would roll up, and his daughters, well, he had a little bed underneath, and 2 of his daughters would sleep there or take a nap first thing in the morning. And so that was kind of cute. But definitely a family, a strong family. It's a family business. And it's just sad to see that he's having the challenges he's facing, and that he's actually shutting down. That's a sad note. I might want to buy some rabbits off of you. I don't know if I can take many chickens or anything like that, but definitely some rabbits. I just got some rabbits from the Blue Bottle Bunny Farm, and I may gear up some more. I'm going to gear up an operation out in Arizona too. But yeah, it's really disheartening. But my own experience, Jesse, is that I'm still having to work full time, and I got debts out the yin yang, so I can't get away from it. I need that income, but it makes it hard to transition into a farm while you're working part time, while you're working full time. And my job is more than a full time job. I noticed from your let's see, am I still sharing it? I stopped just. I think I just stopped it.
I think you're right there. I agree with you. I've always kind of considered myself a pretty tough dude. But when you've got a nice cushy job like I had working for the company I was working for in the steel industry, to walk away from that and work for yourself, it takes guts or lack of intelligence or something. But it took a lot of courage on my end, because that's a scary thing to do.
I would go.
You got a family.
I'd go bankrupt. I've got horrendous bills. I'd go bankrupt. But I like what you say right here, and this is this is pretty much my motto too. sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah.
This is his Facebook site. Husband, he got it right. Husband first, father, farmer, sleep when I'm dead. And people that know me and know my channel know that sleep is something that I'm not very well acquainted with. But look at all these beautiful pictures here, the kids and the farm, the greenhouse, all this. I mean, he's got a beautiful operation here. It's just it really pains to see that this is going to be going away, guys. This is the way farming ought to be. It ought not be the big factory farms. So he had short hair for quite a while, and I started teaching. I see that right there. Is that the Madison City Farmers Market?
Yeah, that's us. That's the good old days. You were probably right there beside me.
I probably was just to the right of you, right there. I was probably to the right. And so I met Jesse with short hair like that. Now he's got the long hair. I saw him and so, what'd you let your hair grow out for? So, and he said they told me he was going into aerospace.
Gonna be a long-haired engineer.
I told him, I warned that this was not typical for aerospace engineers to have the long hair.
That was good.
I'm not exactly normal, Jesse. So if you're letting me be your benchmark, you might get in trouble.
Well, I don't know, Greg. I'm not real normal either, so we may fit in pretty good together.
Yeah. Anytime anybody calls me normal, they use the prefix or they think that's my last name. The first name's Abby. So, Abby.
Yeah.
So, it's, but you're thinking about going into the new space movement like SpaceX. I don't think it'll be a problem there working with companies like that. So, and then really and truly, if you got the talent, there's other long-haired guys where I work. So, if you've got the talent, they're going to look past that. So the talent is the main thing. And you've told me you've got some skills there. So,
yeah, the space industry is something that really, really piques my interest right now. There's just so much happening, and I just feel like it's such an exciting time. Things are happening really quickly. I think SpaceX is their approach to the process, where the rapid test and design and rebuild and innovative. I really think they're just really, really way far into the future with their innovations and the speed at which they're making. And so I think that would be a really cool opportunity to chase down. They're hiring all over the country. It would be hitting a lottery to get in a position like that, especially not having any aerospace experience, really. Most of my experience is more in different industries.
Look, we've
got a good opportunity for education right here in Huntsville, Alabama. So if I decided to go back and get some schooling, this is a good place to do it as any.
Amen to that. Hey, they're building right now, Jesse. I mean, you just told me you work factories and setting things up. They're doing that. So consider that. But hey, at one time you could have, back in the days, we used to do stuff that could have got you some good experience. We used to build our own rocket motors and test fire them, Jesse.
Yeah.
Hybrid rocket motor right here. This is the daddy of the Virgin Galactic's, or maybe the granddaddy of Virgin Galactic's hybrid rocket motor. We test fired it just about a mile from my house here. Still smells like it burnt.
Wow.
Yeah,
I remember me and my dad doing one of the little model rockets when I was a small child. I remember doing that, pretty clearly. I remember we had a smaller rocket, and we ended up getting one of a little bit bigger motor that was called for that rocket to actually fit into it. And I don't think that thing landed yet. And that was probably 25 years ago.
Intergalactic.
Yeah.
Well, super chat here from It Hits the Fan. Thank you, It Hits the Fan. Appreciate that. So, yeah, we had 80 people a minute ago. We got 77 now. It's kind of bouncing around how many people are watching. So, tell us about your operation a little bit here. Well, I've got another little place I can share from your. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's another website I can share here. Hang on, let me go back into the sharing mode here. I'm going to share again. I'll show a little bit more of your operation. I found you on another spot here. DSR Farms. Look at this, guys. Look at all these chickens. Beautiful farm. Beautiful food.
I think that's why it was such a surprise to so many when we announced that, we were unable to continue, that we decided that it was time to sell out and move forward. I think that's why, is because on our social media, man, it looks like we're just living the dream. And I try to do a really good job of showing the good and the bad, because there's a lot of bad that goes with it too. But I think I failed that pretty hard because I
Well,
feel like
let's see.
it's very
There's
hard.
some of it. Working on your truck, the repair on your trailer.
Yeah.
There's
That's why I
always,
think somebody's got some voodoo going on with me. I've had a little streak of bad luck lately too.
yeah, we all get that from time to time. It comes in bunches. So, well, for those that don't know, I'm hoping you get that job down at Boca Chica, Texas with SpaceX, because if you do, you could be my video guy down there for my Galactic Greg's channel.
Oh yeah, that would be a pretty cool gig, man. That would me and my family would like to kind of get away anyhow. And once all the farm stuff is sold and gone, we've got some questions to ask ourselves about where we want to end up and what we want to do professionally. I'm just 32 years old, plenty of time to start a career and start over now. And
You just get started.
I think going through this emotionally has kind of made me realize how precious life is really, and why not try to do something that's really the most exciting thing you could think of. If you could do anything, what would you want to do? And I really think the way space stuff is going right now, that's probably one of the coolest industries, and I think we're at one of the coolest times to be alive in it for sure.
As a young guy, that's definitely something to jump on now. There's a lot of opportunity there. I'm going to show a couple other things here while we're on the share here about some of the challenges in farming right now, guys. Look at this. The drought, the mega drought that we're having in the West. I mean, this was last year in June and this year in June. And you can see, look at this, really hitting hard up here in North Dakota and spreading down. And I'm here, it's getting into Wisconsin now. I mean, look just how deep this drought is. If you haven't seen it, the Hoover Dam is the lowest it's ever been with water behind it. So I just thought I'd look up and see what they were growing up in North Dakota, and it turns out 92% of our flax, 86% of our canola, 51% of durum wheat, and they got spring wheat. 53% of the nation's spring wheat, 51% of the durum wheat. Guys, that's a lot of production coming out of North Dakota that could be missing, and it's going to cause prices to go up even further. Here's some drought maps. Now this was back in May, and it wasn't quite as bad in May as it is now. And you can see it's starting to get down into Wisconsin and some of these other areas here. I'm not going to go through all these maps, it take forever. But you can see farmers are already worried about this over in Wisconsin. They're talking about they're just not getting the water they need for their corn and soybeans. So there's a lot of concern here about this and the crops up in that area, according to this article here. So, and one of the things that's caused our feed prices to go up is the fact that China's brought so much grain, and they don't blame it on the flood, and they blame it always on the fact they're putting in more hogs. I'm sure it's a little bit of both because they had record floods last year, but this year their floods are only 10% lower than last year's. So they already got 71 rivers exceeding the warning levels. So China is in a world of hurt in their major production areas. So we expect them to be buying a whole lot of grain on the world market. So this year's not going to be any better. That's why, guys, I always tell you, grow your own food. Well, there he is. There's a happy family. So hope y'all can keep it happy. There's some happy chickens. But guys, if you don't have more farmers like Jesse's, you're going to be getting chickens grown in a chicken house. They might be cheaper, but they're pumped full of all kinds of hormones and eating GMO grain. They're not grass fed like this. I mean, these eggs taste better, the chicken meat tastes better, and it's better for you by a long shot.
Hey, that's something I want to address too. I feel like it's my duty, as a farmer, to try to make sure to clear up a lot of common myths and stuff. Chickens that you get in a grocery store have never been grown with any kind of artificial hormones or steroids or anything like that. One of the main things that chickens were fed over the many years were just antibiotics. And of course, a side effect of antibiotics is faster growth and things like that. But they didn't feed antibiotics necessarily for growth. They fed antibiotics for keeping, or as a preventative measure, to keep the birds from getting sick, to keep them from getting rashes and infections inside their lungs and esophagus from breathing fecal dust and stuff like that.
Such density.
Right. And so that's something that I always try to address when I hear people, say that, we were giving chickens steroids and stuff. I've never found any proof that chickens were given steroids. It was just the antibiotic feeds, which also leads to antibiotic resistance too. So we know that's not a good thing to be toying with. And I think most of the biggest chicken suppliers in the United States now have backed off of almost all of their antibiotic feeds. I don't know that it's even federally allowed anymore.
Well, they for a long time were putting arsenic in the feed to make them grow out faster too. My dad used to be.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, my dad was a USDA federal poultry inspector, and he was actually a president over the Southeast Local Union on that for quite a while. And he, when I was a kid, we had ABC News crews come to the house back when you only had 3 networks, so everybody watched the networks back in the day. But they came and he was telling them this. It's hey, they're feeding the chicken arsenic up to the time they harvest them, and they were supposed to cut short on it. They only feed it to them the first few weeks. I don't know, 4 weeks, something like. I don't remember exactly what the span was supposed to be that they were supposed to cut, allow it and cut it short after that. So there weren't supposed to be any arsenic in the feed of the chickens for the last several weeks. Now arsenic is cumulative, so I don't know how they even justified that. But so my dad made that allegation, and then the ABC News crews cut in the next scene. When I actually saw the video come out on the television, the next scene they cut to the Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary Earl Butz. And for those, he was the Secretary of Agriculture under Nixon. And for those that might be aware, he was the guy who was really pushing for the big corporate farms and pushing out a lot of the smaller farms. He was pushing the policies that was wiping out people like you, Jesse. And he was really big on this. And he said, no, they're not putting arsenic in the feed. He said they take the arsenic out. There's no arsenic in the feed of the chickens the last several weeks. The next scene, they cut to where my dad took them to a chicken house where they just harvested, where they just caught the chickens and, take them to the processing plant. And they took some of that feed and tested it, and yeah, it had arsenic in it. So I got to see my dad make a liar out of the Secretary of Agriculture on national TV. So
yeah, that sounds like a cool event there.
Yeah, well, that just tells you guys, if y'all can buy your chickens from a local farmer, do it, especially if they're growing them like Jesse. Anything you can do to support guys like Jesse is going to help you have better food. Or if you can't do that, grow your own. You all can. But I was real happy to see a young guy like Jesse get into this and do so well. It seemed like, and to see him ending his farm, just that really kind of hit me hard. It's like, wow. But it underscores what I've been saying for a while, guys. The price of food's going up and farms are shutting down, but also means the quality of the food's going down unless you're growing your own or buying it from other guys like Jesse. So go out and any chance, if you're local, go help Jesse out while you can. If you're in the area, tell us what farmers markets you're going to, Jesse.
So starting tomorrow, we will be attending the farmers market there at Piper and Leaf's new warehouse and headquarters on South Memorial Parkway. And then Saturday, we will be at the Madison City Farmers Market on Hughes Road. And then Sunday, we will be at the Mid-City Farmers Market located at the camp. And I think that's 5909 University Drive, right across from the Top Golf there in Huntsville, Alabama.
All right, very good. So if you're in the area, by all means, go help him out. Go buy from Jesse. He's a good guy. And he needs all the supporting. Even though he may be shutting down, he's still got to meet his finances, and there's still a lot of financial obligations he's got to take care of. And so let's hope he has an easy, soft landing on the other side, and hopefully he has a good entry into aerospace. And you can always use me as a character reference there, Jesse. And like I said, I hope you get a job down in Boca Chica where you want to go, because that would be awesome to be down there, plus with the lunch and everything.
Yeah, we would really like an opportunity to move away for a little while, even if it's just for the summer. Most of those jobs in Brownsville with SpaceX are temporary jobs, and that's just because the entire site is changing so fast. There's not a real need for a lot of permanent jobs down there. Everybody's moving on to the next project, and everything's being produced at a really high rate of speed. And so, it might be something that we might try. We may try to buy us a camper and go on a little 2 or 3 month vacation if we can get out of here with enough money, and kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit and decompress from this. This has been a part of our life, the only part of our life. This is who we are every day for the previous 6 years. So it'll be good to kind of step away, get into some unfamiliar places and meet some new friends and stuff like that for a little while.
Yeah. Well, I got a bus and I'm planning to set it up. It may be a temporary home for me or some of my people that are working my Arizona farm when I get that set up. But eventually I plan to build a structure out there, and then I'll use it to go back and forth if I can pull all this off. So I got a nice bus. It's one of those Thompson buses. So, that might be a good thing to do. Get your camper and see the country. That's a beautiful thing. There's a lot of beautiful places in this country, I'll tell you that. I'm kind of excited.
There is.
I'm going to be about less than an hour and a half drive from the Grand Canyon. Shoot, I could just go up there and watch the sunset on occasion.
That's one of my places I'd like to see. I'm a big fan of those sceneries like that. I think that probably started when I was about 21, as a matter of fact. The first time I went on a cruise ship vacation, I can remember my dad telling me before we went that this moment would change me. But the next morning when I woke up and we were 100 miles out in the ocean, and that water was 20 or 30 shades of blue, watching the sun come up. That was probably before we went to bed that first night. That was really spectacular, and I really enjoy those sceneries like that. And so I want to see the Grand Canyon. I want to see Yosemite. I want to see the Dawn Wall and El Capitan, all those big cliffs. I want to see those things, and I just want to spend time with my family without being stressed out. Without having anxiety about what's going to happen financially and things like that. And just try to have some real good quality time as a family for as long as we can anyway.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. Enjoy the time with your family. You got two. You see, I know you got 2 young daughters. I think you got 3 kids?
Yes, sir. We've got 3. So that's where the name DSR Farms comes from. My daughters their initials are DSR. And that was kind of when we decided that, this might be something we could do if we go to farmers markets to generate, enough money. Back then, it wouldn't have took much money to support our household. Now it's ridiculous, but back then it wouldn't have took, nothing. We could support 10 households like we were back then. But yeah, the household and the business we got now, the room full of kids, yeah, it's a lot more expensive. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sitting here interacting with a couple of people in the chat room.
Yeah, I just got signed in. For some reason, my internet wasn't working for a little bit, and I had to switch Google accounts because the other one, I don't have a YouTube account with it.
Oh, well, feel free to chat with people if you can. It's kind of hard to do when you're talking, though. Some guys are better at it than others. Rex Bear has got a little show called Elite Project. I don't know how he does it. He can really chat up with folks while he's talking hard, so it's kind of a challenge. But
what would be hard for me is I got a real clicky keyboard that's really loud because that's just one of the things I like. And so I have to mute myself if I'm going to type anything.
Well, tell us about what would be your advice for some young couple or anybody at this point, maybe somebody retiring, if somebody's wanting to go into the farm business, what would be your advice for getting into it?
Automatically no. Absolutely not.
Don't go into it.
Run. Get a kayak. Go buy a mountain bike.
Go buy a mountain bike.
So there's a lot of obstacles to overcome, especially for a young couple like us that didn't have an agricultural background. Not only did we not have an agricultural background, didn't have a business background. Had never really operated a business, and going from a hobby to a business is a really weird transition because you kind of have to teach yourself that the things that you used to, look over because that's not important. I'm not a business. You have to kind of capture those things and make them part of your everyday plan. And, for a long time, we kept really, really accurate data, even when it was just, pencil and pad. And eventually it got to where that had to be digitized. And, the data that we've got now just doesn't look good. So, what I talked about earlier is there's a bunch of reasons that went into our equation of whether or not we should or should not continue. And one of those was the changing market and how consumers are changing, the attendance with the actual markets that we go to, the physical markets. They're down, and I'm sure people are out of town going on vacations. We were all cooped up for a year. We're all still alive, so I don't think that's gonna go away. I think families probably all got a little kick in the rear and realized that life is precious, and we want to try to get these memories made and try to enjoy ourselves as much as we can while we're all here together. And I think a lot of people feel that way, and I think, as far as I can tell on my social media, the friends that I have, I see a lot more people going out of town. I see a lot more spontaneous trips to the beach and things like that. And you know what? I kind of want some of that life myself. So those are things that went into our decision to try to check out on that. And another one would be when we look at the overall picture long term and what we would like to see our food system look like. I don't think that we are really making any headway with making it easier for farms like ours to be successful or sustainable. I think what we are doing is being noticed just enough, kind of like a gnat at a barbecue is what we are to the big boys. They can hear us, they can't really see us, but I think what we are doing is we are changing the way that they advertise. And you can see it on their labels. You can see it in the meat departments in the grocery stores. They're using pictures that, they're kind of similar to what I would post. They're using wordage that would be similar to something I would say. And so the average customer is easily duped into thinking that they're getting something that they can emotionally, agree with a little bit more or morally agree with, when in reality, they're getting the same thing they were getting, 10 or 15 years ago. And so those are some of the biggest reasons that really made us weigh heavy on this decision, is we just don't think it looks very good long term. And then another thing is there's probably 15 or 20 times more people doing what we're doing now, or attempting to do what we're doing, than there was 2 or 3 years ago. It's like a fad that's came through, and a lot of these people are hobby farmers, and so they're not necessarily trying to generate profits. And so farms like ours have to compete with those types of prices and stuff. And that's really hard to do. One hobby farmer can't really make a dent in the amount of stuff that we sell, just because we sell so much product because we're at so many different markets. But if you put 2 or 3 dozen of those same farmers in the same county, then we're all fishing in the same pond, if that makes sense. Because there's a large part of the consumers that are just not going to buy meat from the guy down the road, and essentially that's what we are to a lot of society. And so when you put a whole bunch of people, trying to bait the same small number of consumers, you end up with some price wars and things like that. And those are just things that we don't have the energy to deal with, and I don't think that's going to get any easier either.
Yeah, the marketing is a challenge because you got guys like Bezos and Amazon bought into a lot of these big chain so-called wholesale organic food stores. What is it, Wholesale Foods or whatever the name of it is they bought into, and
Whole Foods, I think.
Yeah, Whole Foods. That's it, Whole Foods. And he's talking about trying to set up deliveries to people, and it makes it sound like it's all good and wonderful stuff, but we find out that they're taking Del Monte, just regular old GMO crops and produce, and relabeling it and making it sound like they're getting something different. They got caught doing that. So
yeah, there's a lot of those going on right now. There's a big one. I seen one of the headlines the other day. There's a really big one that was selling to a lot of places that was buying basically commodity beef. And labeling it as 100% grass fed and all this kind of stuff, and that's something that hurts the rest of us, because it breaks a trust thing on a national news level. And that makes it hard for the little guy too.
Plus, they sell it cheaper when they do that, and you can't.
Yeah, of course.
People don't realize you can't raise crops in a all natural farm at the same price they produce it in an industrial farm. I mean, the industrial farms will always win in price, but what you get in quality may be something far different from that. So if you're looking for quality food, healthy food, medicinal food, yeah, that's I don't have a lot of faith in it. Are you gonna still grow at least your own food if you can?
Heck no, I'm not growing anything, brother. I'm not growing nothing. I'm not growing any grass if I can keep from it. I'm really serious. I really think that when all this is said and done, if everything goes really well, that we'll walk out of it in a pretty good position once we liquidate all of our equipment and things like that. And that's going to be a long process. We've got 1,500 laying hens that we've got to sell one way or another. All of our roller tractors and just all of the little feeders and things like that we have. But once all of that's said and done and all the animals are gone, we're pretty serious about, either getting us a camper or pretty much just mapping out a road trip for a few months and finding cheap motels or something like that. And, we want to see some sights and spend some really good quality time together with no worries. I am so ready to cut my phone off and leave it somewhere locked in a Faraday cage where nobody can even leave me a voicemail. I really want
my cell phone's in a 5G pouch right now that Rex Bear, some of the followers know who I'm talking about, gave to me. He's got a channel called Leak Project. So he gave me that. So thank you, Rex. So that keeps people from calling me while I'm talking to you.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. I don't know if I have a way to do that on my phone. But I've got the computer pulled up too. So if I was to lose you, I can jump back on my computer.
And there's the input to my landline.
Oh, goodness. Completely unplugged. So one of the big concerns, or one of my, I guess, worst feelings about some of this is I've actually had this same cell phone number since I was 13 years old. Be 20 years next year that I've had this exact same cell phone number, never had a different one. And that's kind of sentimental to me almost. And I'll be glad to see this one get changed into somebody else's name. I promise you.
I got my cell phone number in 1997.
Yeah.
When I started launching hybrid rockets from altitude balloons, and I needed more communications capabilities. And I was talking to a lot of news media and different things. So I've had it since 1997, same number.
Yeah, that was about 2001 or so. I remember my mom took me to get a cell phone that day. I think for several weeks, I only had 2 or 3 people's phone numbers because I didn't even know how many kids at school had phones. Like it was a completely new thing. And those were the good times. I didn't know it yet, but those were definitely the good times.
Oh yeah, we're in some. Well, what worries me today is just the all the things going down. And I do encourage people to grow their own food if they can, because I think the food security is going to be a big issue. The prices are going to be going up. The quality is going down. And I don't know what I'm getting. But you're kind of burnt out on it. You've been going hard at it and it ain't got you anywhere. And you're just willing to live a life, because there's one truth about it. When you're farming, you're there. You can't walk away from all those chickens and cows and pigs and rabbits. They got to be fed every day.
Yeah. And I don't even think I own a t-shirt that doesn't say DSR Farms. This is so intertwined in our life. Our vehicles all have DSR Farms. I made a joke the other day and said that I can't even flip nobody off in traffic because I've got my company name on my truck, and I'll be happy just to be able to be a regular driver again, and so
flip people off, huh?
yeah. I mean, that's just one of those things you think about sometimes. Like, you know what? I can't even get mad in traffic because I always have to remember that, everything about the way I act just about represents this business too. And so, one little bad decision and it can just about ruin you with the way social media works these days.
Wow.
And so there's just a lot of things. It is definitely, as a young couple with a young family, it's very hard when something gets this embedded in your life. It really is. It can cause a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and things like that. We've seen changes in the way that we all behave towards each other at different times. You know, a lot of times when money's tight, everybody seems to be ill because, you know, the kids doesn't get to get those special treats. Me and the wife don't get to have those special treats that we might like.
Yeah.
And then if you're short and a bill can't be paid, you're in big trouble. And so that can cause arguments and things like that. And it can make it stressful on a marriage as well. And so those are just things that are just not worth sacrificing, you know, for the good of the company. I would rather just go back and get me a job where I can clock in and clock out and turn my phone off and know that I'm not going to be called. And, you know, unless I'm on call for that job or something, but I know I'm going to be paid for those requirements, as where right now I'm doing it for free.
Yeah. Yeah. You're trying to get out of farming and into aerospace. I'm going from aerospace to farming, but I grew up on a farm. So that's a little bit different. I kind of surprised when I heard you say you didn't grow up on a farm. You didn't have that experience to start with. You didn't have any business experience. I actually started a rocket company. I ran conferences. My mom had a shoe store when I was a kid. So business is not a strange thing to me. I ran the National Space Society for a while. The National Space Society was about to go bust until I, you know, led an effort to revamp it very significantly when I was chairman of the executive committee, which made I was the CEO of the organization. It was tanking. It was right after 9/11. A lot of our renewals went through the post office that got hit by the anthrax, and that mail got scuttled. All that mail was scuttled. Was it considered potentially infected, and just the whole nation was kind of beside itself, not knowing what to do next, and it really hurt a lot of organizations. So we had a lot of recovery to do. We had been a $2 million a year organization. I think we dropped about $250,000 in revenue. So we had to totally revamp everything. So it was a major piece of work. And I did all that on the side, like you. You know, I still have had a day job all along, even when I was running my own rocket company. But now I'm doing the farming thing, but I'm doing it a little different than you. I'm more into, my animals are mainly worms, but I do have some rabbits, and I do have fish, because I got aquaponics. But I'm into plants, but I'm focused more on garlic and turmeric. And right now the garlic is doing me better than anything, but it's not it's not my livelihood at this point. You know, I still am working aerospace. I'm growing the microgreens. I'm just re-gearing that up. I just put the trailer for that. And I got a lot of hope in the microgreens business, and I've got a lot of hope in what I'm planning to do in Arizona. But, you know, so I'm actually investing in this. I'm putting a lot of money into it. Maybe, you know, I've had to question, am I crazy for doing it? I could pay off all my debts and be debt free, or I can further invest in this. But I've got some hope that this will pay off on a regular basis. But but I'm trying to get good people lined up to work with me, and that's what I'm really. Without good people, that ain't gonna work. You know, it's going to be really contingent on having good people working with me, good partners, and I think I'm getting that lined up now finally. So, but it's not been easy. It takes a lot of challenge to get good people involved in something like this. And I just got to cross my fingers and hope for the best, because, you know, I might be blowing my chance at a retirement. Unless I do one time I did dream. I can relate to you in one area. I dreamed that I just got rid of everything I owned. Just got rid of everything except my van, the one that just got crashed. And so I guess that dream won't come true. But I dreamed.
Hey, I got a crash van too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my wife's van.
Oh no.
Yeah, we were at an intersection the other night, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we were at an intersection, and a drunk driver ran the red light and T-boned the car and spun them around, and they hit me perpendicular across the intersection to them.
Well, I just almost saw a T-bone wreck a couple hours ago. It was a narrow miss of the car running a light. But yeah, I got rear-ended by a truck and knocked into a light pole. And so it totaled my gold van. But what I had dreamed was I just got rid of everything except for the van, a little fishing gear and some camping gear. And I dreamed I lived out of the van and just traveled around the country and didn't do nothing else. And I dreamed I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of one of the things we're looking at. You know, we really even, you know, our family is already watching these YouTube videos of people, small families that travel full time. You know, if you get a job in sales or something like that where you can work remotely, and a lot of places are going that now. That cut out their necessity to have a corporate office. You know, they cut that. That's just profit for them. They eliminated that cost of production or producing that service they were providing. So that's a smart move for a lot of companies, and it freed up a lot of people to do these where they can just be nomads essentially with a camper, and they can travel and see all these sites, and
Yeah.
they can still earn a small income. And so if you do what we want to do, which is potentially sell our house and most all of our belongings and live a real minimalist lifestyle with a decent size, you know, really durable camper, then with no debts and a little bit of money in the bank, you don't really have to generate that much profit or that many dollars to survive. If you're just basically fuel, you know, for traveling once a week or something like that, and you know, if your campground fees are pretty reasonable, you don't have to make a whole lot of money to do really well. Then, if you don't have a house, or a mortgage, and a car payment, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm. Well, yeah, that's a whole lot of expense, but you still got to feed your kids, and you got to find a way to handle all that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, well, fortunately, the way the housing market is in our neighborhood right now, we have an opportunity to make a good bit of money if we was to sell our home. If we can buy a camper with what we're left with after the farm is gone, we may sell our home and have a few years worth of income stagnant there. And even if we just decide to take a few years off and travel for a few years, what a perfect time to do a little bit of education online in the aerospace industry while I'm traveling the country. Maybe even getting some temporary positions somewhere. That would be a pretty cool opportunity.
there you go. Well, I'll tell you what, while you're at it, you might consider buying a bus, because buses
Yeah,
are built tough. And a lot of these campers you buy are anything but. They're prone to all kind of leak problems, and kind of like your trailer, you know, except a lot more complex. So if you think about the issues with your trailer and you multiply that times about 20, that's what you're getting when you buy a camper.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot to that. There's a lot of campers out there though that designed and built a little bit better because they're four seasons, is what they call them, or all seasons, and they're designed with the intent for small families to live in them full time. And so they're just made a little more durable. You don't get as much of the glued on paneling or the glued on trim around the corners. You get things like maybe a bigger shower, but you know, smaller living areas or smaller bedroom area, and sacrifice for a bigger kitchen, things like that. And the things they can do with about a 30-foot fifth wheel camper now, and for the money they can do it for, and then the reviews that back up these people that say, hey, we live in this thing full time, and you know, this thing's solid. It's not, you know, falling to pieces like you would think a camper would, like the economy style campers would, the ones for people that go out and stay, you know, at the lake on Memorial Day. Of course, we can't live in one of those, but there's some campers out there right now that are designed for full time, and we think that it's probably worth a shot, at least to get the experience we want out of it.
All right, very good, very good. So I got a number of people in the chat room do farming. Bailey Fam, Jason Avers, and a lot of them. Jason are, you know, small farmers. He takes care of his own family, basically growing for his own self as much as anything. But let's see, what's he say here? A few good sturdy poles and some buffalo hides is all you need. Talking about going out and Sioux Indian style. Yeah, there you go.
I like the comment from Deborah Hayes. Says, please don't sell your farm to Bill Gates. I would like Miss Deborah there to give me Bill Gates' number, and I will call him and tell him that he cannot buy my farm. That's what I'll do. I'll tell him he don't have enough money to buy my farm. That's what I'll tell him. We'll see what kind of ego he's got.
Yeah, I see that comment now. Yeah, Deborah Hayes, please don't sell your farm to Bill Gates. Yeah, I hear he's growing potatoes for McDonald's up in Washington State.
That's awful weird to be buying up, you know, land like that. But you know, from if you set aside all the conspiracy from a business standpoint, if you've got the capital to purchase land now, that's something that they're not ever going to make any more of on this planet. And so, yeah, if you've got the capital to purchase land here, now's a good time to be doing it. I think it's something that's going to continue to grow in value for a long time. And that's another really big obstacle that young, especially farmers, are going to have to deal with. If there's no inheritance, if you can't inherit some land or some property somewhere, in many places, access to land is just far too expensive, to go into meat production or even small produce production. We are farming a 60-acre lease right now, and then the lease or the land where the cows are at is about 120 to 180 acres or so, depending on which side of the road we're on. There's, I think, 120 on one side of the road and then 60 on the other. So it's 180 acres total.
How many acres do you own versus how many acres do you lease?
So I'm leasing the 60 acres. The only land I own is the 3.5 or so here with my home. We used to own the 15 acres next door to my home, and I sold it to kind of a developer and made a good profit there. And then we found this 60 acres that we could rent for dirt cheap, and it was conveniently close to home or close enough. And it was a perfect time, and that became available when we were approached to sell the land that we had just purchased 7 months before. And then I've got a partner with the beef enterprise. Me and a friend of mine went in together, and he was able to purchase all of his grandmother's cattle. And it worked out where me being right down the road, I could manage that herd and just kind of, be able to take care of his cows for him. And then that gave me a steady supply of beef to manage as my own without actually having to go and borrow that money for the herd. And of course, now he's kind of in a kind of an odd position, but we're still going to be here for the foreseeable future. So we're going to keep taking care of the cows until we can figure something out. But access to land, if I wanted to buy that land from his grandmother, man, there's no telling what that land's worth. And of course, she's got to sell it at market value. She deserves to make whatever that it can bring if she did decide to sell it. But, a small family like ours, we can't afford to go give $300,000 or $400,000 for a tract of land when we're only grossing $250,000, $300,000 in sales every year. You can't stretch yourself out with a note that big when you don't have the sales dollars to generate, the note itself.
Downside is the people that inherited land and are farming it, and the farm produce is not that valuable per se. They're suddenly getting hit with taxes, capital gains taxes, and other kind of things at the full market value for the land. It's like the government is really trying to run people off farms. It looks like that there's a lot of pressure there, and the current administration has a plan to rewild 30% more land by 2030, and supposedly 50% by 2050. What the heck are we going to do if we take half of our farmland and take it out of production? I mean, that's just like, wow. What do you think?
People are going to have to start eating less meat, but higher quality meat. That's the main thing that's going to have to happen, because about 80% of our food production in the United States is growing small grains for cattle and animal feed. And so if you cut out all of that feed that we're using in these confinement feed yards, these mega factory farms, if you cut out all of those, grains that we're growing to feed animals, some of which were not even, designed to eat those grains, then we wouldn't be in the situation we're in with agriculture being in a crisis all the time.
Yeah. So, they should be eating grass. I mean, like you feed yours. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that people have asked me about previously. Like, a lot of people that have cows say things like, well, I like to take my cow or my steer the last 60 days and put it on corn and, fatten it up and give it flavor and stuff like that. And from a business perspective alone, I like the idea of not having to spend any more money feeding that cow. If I can let it eat grass, which grows for free, then why would I want to buy money and feed it the corn? I happen personally to like the flavor of grass-finished beef better. And so outside of that being a personal, taste preference, which is true, a lot of people don't like the flavor of grass-fed beef. A lot of people prefer corn or grain finished, and that's okay. I ate grain finished beef my entire life before I started raising beef, and have since at some restaurants and things like that as well too. So it's a personal preference thing, but I like it from a business standpoint. I spend less money to produce it, and then I sell it for a higher dollar value in the end because of that. And so to me, that just sounds better. I like more money every chance I get a chance to get more money. That's one of our top priorities all the time.
When you're a small operator, you need niches like it. You absolutely have to farm in a niche market, or you can't survive. If you can't
Yeah,
find a good niche market, you don't. That's it for anybody. Any of you guys want to farm, you got to have a niche market. If you're going out and grow what all the big guys grow, you're dead. You can't make it. And they're fighting each other to do it, and it's really tough for everybody, including them. So, hey, do you use a CSA? Do you use CSAs at all? You do that?
Yeah, so our CSA is set up a little differently. A lot of CSAs, you buy into them, you pay a certain amount at the beginning of the year, and then you get a lot of times a pre-chosen basket on a weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly basis. And so our CSA is set up a little different. They still pay up front at the beginning of the year, but instead of us picking and choosing products to give them in a certain bundle or basket or box every month or on a scheduled basis, we actually just give them an additional credit percent saving. So for instance, our 1 year CSA, if somebody comes to us in the beginning of the year and they give me $1,350, they can get, I think it's $1,600 credit to use on my website for any products that they choose. So they can get their favorite product, and basically they get, that $300 or $400 extra free money in exchange for paying me up front in the beginning of the year. And that is one of the things that we've used in the past to generate those sales dollars that we need early in the year for getting the season started, because it takes an exorbitant amount of money to get the season kicked off every year in the beginning of the year. We have to spend the most amount of money at the time of year that we sell the least amount of product.
There you go. So you can go here and they click shop now. Is that how that works? And they come in here and they pick what they want to buy. And how do you know they get a percent off? You got some software that manage that CSA, or how do you run your CSA?
No, so the CSA is just a real simple spreadsheet. If you pay me $1,350 for the 1 year, we put your name in a spreadsheet, and then each month you are allotted a $150 credit. And the way we do that is you simply go to my website, you search and shop for your $150 worth of products that you would like that month. And then at payment, you select cash as the payment type at checkout, and then select your delivery day, because technically you've already paid for this product when you paid me at the beginning of the year. And
right.
that generates a digital sales receipt. So we know exactly what you got each month, and we know how much balance you have at any given time. And it's a really simple process, and it's worked out really good in the past.
Okay. Right, so
the problem we had this year is we got all that money up front at the beginning of the year, and some of these people paid us for the year, and so we're not growing for a year. So we're having to ask people to either spend the balance quickly, or we'll try to give them their balance back in cash as soon as possible. And we have refunded at least one customer that I know of. And so that kind of shot me in the foot this year a little bit.
So you're shutting the CSA down now.
Yeah. So like I said, what I did was I called all of our CSA members and I said, hey guys, we're going out of business. I know it's only 5 months into the year. You were expecting to get another $600 or $800 worth of product over the next 6 months. But what I need you to do is go ahead and start spending that money a little faster. Go ahead and get the products you would like and try to fill your freezers up. We understand that you may not have freezer space and things like that, and we will work with you the best we can. But we just want you to know we are out of money. We are in financial crisis, and we're having to shut this thing down and liquidate as fast as possible to get out of this situation that we can't financially recover from operating as normal business. And so selling all of our inventory will pretty much solve this problem that we have. But then we're left with the decision of, do we continue? And for us, that was a no.
Wow. So I'm looking at I'm ramping up a little bit here, like I said, with microgreens, and I'm planning to revamp my greenhouse, and I'm planning to kind of duplicate that out in Arizona, but it will be mostly growing lettuces and greenhouses, select vegetables, and I plan to run a CSA on that. But not livestock intensive, other than maybe just rabbits. I do plan to raise worms in Arizona. One of the big reasons I'm going to Arizona is I can save money shipping if I can ship both from the west side of the country and the east side of the country. I get two places to ship from, and it saves me a lot of money in postage. And it can also give me some redundancy. If one farm has a problem, hopefully the other farm can back it out. Because I'm looking at shipping product. The worm business is a very different sort of business than a lot of other farms, but it's still a business and it's a farm. And like any of them, you can hit roadblocks and rocks in the road just like you've hit. And I've definitely hit my. I was selling worms for 10 years, Jesse, and I had a problem last year. I had several problems. And I tried to restart it, and I thought I had everything lined up well for the restart, and it just didn't pan out the way I wanted to. But I'm real hopeful that it will go well this fall for me. So I'm trying to expand that. I think that I'll be in a very good position when I restart, at least somewhere down the road, especially later on if I can ship from both sides of the country. But it'll take a year or longer to get Arizona set up for that area, for that level, because you've got to grow your worm herd out there. I've got to build worm beds. It's a lot of work to build worm beds, and it goes back to the kind of stuff you're talking about. I got to have lumber. I'm going to plan to get a bulldozer and push up trenches and put worms down in that so they could be more temperature stable than they are here, since you got the day and night cycle temperature differences. And there's gonna be there'll be lumber involved and a lot of other things. So there's a lot of costs. I got to put a lot of money into that. I got to put in a well. The upside though is that just putting a well on that property will definitely increase the value of it if everything tanked and I had to resell it. But I'm also looking at the idea just from a survivalist standpoint. I'm 26 miles from Browns Ferry here.
And northeast.
Yeah.
At least I'm southwest of it just a little bit. We generally have that northwest, wind coming up from Mississippi and stuff. That's, generally that's the way the wind blows. So I've got a little bit of a head start on most days.
Yeah. So I'm looking at Arizona. There's no nuclear power plant with a long distance from where I'm at. The southern Arizona is heavy populated, but where I'm going into, there's almost nobody up there. Southern Arizona is hotter than a firecracker, but it's actually cooler in aggregate where I'm going. It's zone 7B. So it's just a little bit cooler. I've been out there Thanksgiving before last, and we had a really good snow. Seldom you get a good snow around here in Thanksgiving. So it's an interesting place, and it's real close to a lot of attractions: the Grand Canyon, the Painted Desert, the Petrified Forest. You got the Hopi Indians to the north, the Pueblos to the northeast, the Apaches to the south. There's a lot of interesting things, the mountains and forest to the south. Of course, I'll be in the desert, absolutely a full-blown desert. But they have a good aquifer there. It's called the Coconina Aquifer, and it's not been pumped like the Ollie. I can't even say that. The aquifer in the Midwest, which has been pumped down real hard. So I'm kind of enthusiastic about what I'm doing there, but I hope it all pans out. So I'm either doing something smart or I'm being absolutely nuts. One or the other.
Hey, at this point, I'm willing to take some chances now. I've took about the biggest leap you can take as a family man. I've taken probably one of the biggest risks that a man can take as far as quitting a job and starting a business and then failing. That's kind of the situation we're in. And so at this point, everything else I can do, I don't really think much of it is risky at this point. Buying a camper or just becoming nomadic in some sense where we're just traveling for a few months, that doesn't even seem risky to me anymore. I've already, conquered so many things that are so much larger than that, I feel like.
Yeah, I understand that. So, for me, my kids have grown up. And they're still raising kids. I've raised 3, and my youngest is working as an engineer now. So all my kids have grown up. They've established their lives. So if I had to just move on and throw it all away, I could do it if I had to. I could walk away from everything. Of course, that means I'd be going bankrupt in essence. But if I had to, I could do it.
Yeah, it's a scary jump. It really is. And so But, I kind of look at it the same way I did when I made the decision to quit my career. My nice, high-paying, cushy little career I had at a nice steel company. I think this is just kind of the other side of that coin. This is getting out of my next career and doing something else drastic and adventurous and something that'll make a lot of really good memories with my wife and kids.
Yeah, yeah. So I got a comment from a compost happen says collect rainwater. Well, yeah, I plan to. So problem is they're having a record drought out in the Southwest right now, so that might be a little tough. Yeah, a well's a huge capital expense there. I just put in a well here. I'm definitely gonna have to put a well in out there, and that's very expensive. And you got to cross your fingers and hope you hit water. Because if I don't hit water in the first shot, then I'm out the money, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a gamble involved in it all. But I have had water from that Coconina aquifer. I've stayed with another family out there Thanksgiving before last, and it was good water. So.
Yeah, I like that water. I think it's Blue Spring water or something like that from down around the Birmingham area. Starting to see some of that water up here a little bit. We delivered to that guy, either maybe a manager for that company or something like that, and he gave us several cases of that water. One day last year, I think it was, when we were selling whole pigs or something like that. And I like that water. I enjoyed that. I thought that was cool to drink water that was, sourced right here in Alabama and come from really so close to home.
There you go. I hear that. So, and I'm glad I got a well now, but I got to get it checked for bacteria. I'm not using it in the house yet, but once I get it checked, figure out if I got to put UV in it, then I'll switch it into the house. I got all the plumbing in place. I just got to switch the valve off at the meter and the valve on between the house and the well.
Yeah.
That's all it's taking. So I tell you what, I'm gonna go grab a poster real fast. But while I'm running to grab this poster to show to folks, tell us about your biggest challenges in farming over the last few years.
Sure. So I think, like I said earlier, I think the biggest challenge is just the amount of energy and talking and just preaching about the product that we have to do. And from our regular Facebook advertisements that we type up with, just a simple picture from the farm, to just talking to customers at farmers markets one after another. Luckily sometimes at markets people are kind of spread out around a table and you can preach to 10 or 12 people, and then an hour later you get another 10 or 12 standing there having the same speech. But it just takes so much mental energy to just put yourself out there. One of the things that we battled most was me personally almost was posting something on social media every day. And that'll really make you hate social media. And so the energy it takes to post something positive on social media every day, even if you're having a really crappy day, that can get old. It can get really heavy really quick. And that's a big obstacle that we had to overcome. But I think overall, the biggest thing is either the energy and the time it takes to sell yourself like that, or just building the operating capital and keeping it, just because of all the other obstacles and things that you have to come. Every cost of production I have is very volatile and variable, and is subject to all kinds of catastrophes that can, double its cost and things like that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty in farming, just a lot of uncertainty. And everybody's aware of the weather, but that's just part of it. There's just a whole lot of variables, as you mentioned, and it is a business. And people just forget that, and they forget all the challenges that a small farmer's got to deal with. And they expect you to be able to give them high quality food at the same price they're buying stuff in the factory farms at Walmart. And it's just it's a challenge. But for me, my biggest challenge has been help and labor. So I'm trying some different tactics to change that equation. And I think I'm beginning to finally hit some success with that. But just something to think about as you start to move towards space. Jesse, how about this? Look at this.
Check that out. I like that. I like that.
You might, hey,
Maybe,
this might be you, Jesse. And
yeah, maybe I'll raise a hog on Mars one day or something. Wouldn't that be something?
20 years from now, that might be you right there.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's that's really on a serious note about that though. I mean, think about, for instance, the period between the 1920s. So if you think back, if we were the equivalent of 1920 and 1921, think of how different things got over those 40 years into the 60s when we started going to space. And so if things change that much more, if things are that much more technologically advanced, how crazy does the future seem when you think of all those possibilities? You know, if we consider ourselves and our technology as old and redundant, I guess, as what they had in the 1920s, think about how drastic the future could be. That's something I enjoy thinking about sometimes. And, you know, as fast as things are changing technology wise now, especially with all the AI and the advancements in that in the last few years, I've followed some of those like the AlphaGo and the AlphaZero. Those type things are really interesting to me. And, you know, they're way above my IQ and pay grade and in most cases, but it's still on a level that I can comprehend. It's very interesting.
Don't sell yourself short, Jesse. It's just like your farming exercise. It's whatever you're willing to put into it. If you're
I mean, I agree.
If you're willing to put the time in and the effort, you can learn these things. But, you know, I became an electrical engineer, but I'm going to tell you what, I studied day and night. I didn't sleep. That's where I learned not to sleep, was when I was in engineering school. I busted my day and night for years on end. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't have fun. I didn't party. So, you know, I didn't do anything but study day and night. Everywhere I went, I took books. The time I was married, and if the wife drove, anywhere we went, she had to drive, and I was studying on the way there. If we went to visit family, I took the books there with me, and while everybody else was talking, doing whatever they were doing, I was in my books. That's where I lived the whole time for years on end, with my nose in a book.
We're a similar situation now, and I'm like that with my dang cell phone. If we go somewhere, me and my wife kind of have a running game where we try to see who can sneak out the house first and get in the passenger seat, because one of us has to be on the phone posting, responding to questions, emails, you know, answering text messages, or watching the cameras here at the house if people are at the farm store. You know, our farm store is open 24/7, and we could sit here for 3 days and not go to town and never see a soul. And the minute we pull out of the driveway and get about 10 minutes down the road, there'll be 14 people show up. And we have to talk to those people sometimes through the camera if we can. Those little cameras are really hard to hear. But then we're also just watching and listening. And that way, if they have any questions, we will try to find out who they are, because we can hear them talking. And then we can contact them and try to answer those questions and get them back as a customer as quickly as possible if we can.
Oh, yeah. So Bailey Pham asked, how's my greenhouse? You know, it got nearly crushed last winter by snow. I still got a couple of hoops in there messed up a little bit, but I got her back online, and I got to get some more fish. My big thing now is I got lettuce planted out in, and I got to get more tilapia to get the nutrient count back up. So I don't have quite enough nutrient going in for the amount of lettuce I got. So I need to get tilapia to get that thing going. So it's a step up thing when you're doing aquaponics. And it does have its challenges. But then again, one of the big challenges is just the fact that I got a day job. It's very demanding. I spend 10 hours a day. I'm working from home right now. This is the Greg Allison Space Flight Center here. I spend 10 hours a day looking at these screens. So it's so when I do that, and I'm trying to do YouTube and trying to do the farming. So for some people, they say, well, why do you do YouTube? Well, that's what's paying for the farm. This stuff just pays the daily bills. I got some big bills. So
YouTube is something I wish that I had started long ago and spent more time with. I think if I had put the same energy into YouTube as I did into our farm's Facebook page, you know, our farm's Facebook page is somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000, maybe 6,500 followers. I think if I put that much energy into YouTube and making, you know, the same type videos, some short, quick, comical, you know, scenes, and then some more detailed, maybe set downs, maybe do some live videos like that, I really think our farm business would have went a little bit better direction. Just because of the ability to be monetized and things like that, if you have a good, strong YouTube following. And there's really no option for that with Facebook.
No, Facebook's a lot more limited. So I do like the platform of YouTube for that purpose. It gives you a lot more ability to grow, but it's work too. It takes a lot of time. You got to post a lot of videos. There's a lot of techniques you have to do. Like, the good channels that tell you how to build a channel tell you the first thing, one of the first things you got to do within just a very few minutes is tell people to subscribe to your channel. And I watch the channels that don't do that, and they don't have near the subscribers that they could have for the content they're putting out. A lot of people don't want to do that, but it hurts them in the long run. But then again, listeners hate to hear it. That's, I don't want to hear that. And you spend 5 minutes to get to the topic of the do. If you're promoting something like, when I said, hey, now's the time to plant, go to Tree Leaf Market. There's links in my channel, Tree Leaf Market, if you want to grow your own seeds. You'll find a lot of my videos. So, but people complain about that. But at the same time, that's what makes the channel work. And the people that put those ads at the end, most people aren't watching the video at the end. They watch it at the beginning. So you got to be upfront with that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of techniques for building YouTube channels and making them successful that a lot of the viewers don't really appreciate, but it's what really works in the long run. So, but like I said, I've seen channels that could have had 10 times more subscribers than what they get. But then again, there's channels that, I do a lot of things you shouldn't do on YouTube too. My channel is too broad. You should have an extremely narrow niche focus with your channel. If you and that channels that do that do a lot better. I get guys, look, I'm actually chair 2 power grid defense conferences. I'm on 2 national level power grid defense committees. I am an electrical engineer. I work avionics system safety, so I'm pretty well versed in power grid defense. But I see channels sometimes smaller than mine. They'll go, well, I think we need to do something about the grid, and they'll put out a bunch of information. A lot of times it's really wrong, but they'll get 10 times more views than me. I go, really? So it's kind of interesting, but that's just the way the YouTube cookie crumbles.
Yeah, like I said, I wonder sometimes if I'd put all the time and energy into that I put into the Facebook, how different things might be now. Because I've seen enough of the backdoor stuff with YouTube that other pages with substantial followings have showed. There's a lot of pages out there that are really transparent with the monetization and what kind of money they actually get to keep from their YouTube and what all is involved in that. And so I can imagine, farms like mine, generally the ones that are successful, have a very large YouTube following. And I wonder how much different that would have made things.
Yeah. It's like New Days Old Ways is saying in here. She says, good marketing and PR is key to success. And indeed, the YouTube channel had a huge impact on my sale of worms. So we can help you sell products, but of course, YouTube is a nationwide, actually international platform. So, if you're just only local, it might be harder. But since I've been shipping nationwide, it really did appeal to that niche. And, if I gear up more garlic and turmeric in the future where I can ship that nationwide, that would definitely fit in that niche real well. So, I'm getting somebody here said the bay leaf said the bees didn't survive the cold winter. Yeah, a lot of people having bees problems. I got a beekeeper keeps bees on my place. I don't do that part, but I get a little honey from it. I don't have to do anything other than let them come.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can do with a farm, and that's part of it. You can just turn some of it over to somebody else like that or some operation. But that's hard to do. It's not as straightforward as one might think. So you're just going to get entire. When do you expect you'll be out of the farm business, Jesse?
We got a lot of product in the freezers, and it's flying. We're getting orders all hours of the night and all hours of the day. I think we've got a little over 20 deliveries for tomorrow. We'll have 2 delivery drivers come in and help us tackle that. And then we've got people that are coming out to the farm store and buying all they can haul. But I mean, we've got several thousand pounds of product in inventory. And I went Tuesday to pick up the rest of the pork and stuff that we had at one of our processors up in Northwest Tennessee, and I could only bring back about half of it because one of the things I ran into is right now you can't rent a refrigerated truck. All of the Penske's and the Ryder truck rentals of the world seem to have theirs leased out to the big corporations, the big companies that lease these things for 6 months at a time during the summertime. All the ice companies, for instance, doing all the events. And so I had to carry my market trailer and take all of our farmers market inventory out of those freezers and cram it into the walk-in, and then go stack those freezers as full as I could get them with product at the slaughterhouse, which was about half of what's up there. And then I had a terrible, terrible day getting back home. I had 3 blowouts. I had some problems with the chassis on my trailer.
That's how you overloaded your trailer. Yeah, I did that once with the trailer.
It was overloaded slightly, about 500 pounds outside of what the axles are rated for. But the biggest problem was the wall of the enclosed trailer separated from the chassis at the bottom, the little mounts. And so when I carried it to the repair shop, of course, they put the jack between the 2 tires and jacked up on it. But because those trailer chassis are built with, they're such an economy frame, they're very weak and flimsy. And so the actual boxed structure of the enclosed trailer is what gives it its strength. And without that horizontal, structure being welded to the chassis, when that got jacked up on the frame, it bent the frame of the trailer a little bit. And so what I've had to do is set the trailer up on all 4 corners with weight in the middle. And then I'm using another floor jack to kind of fine tune where that chassis alignment is, and then weld that wall back to the bottom of it. And so real pain in the rear process, because the way that thing's made and trimmed out where you can't get to the chassis. And so I'm having to do a little bit of sheet metal work and stuff like that. But once I get that done, won't have any more problems with it, eating up tires on the inside of it, and it'll be good as new. But I don't know if maybe just wear and tear over time broke those welds. It does look like it's been that way for a long time, but it's never been jacked up on the frame, so it never been it.
Wow. Yeah, I tore a trailer up real bad hauling a load on one that was overloaded. Well, I first learned about the value of having the best tires, and then later, I burned up 2 axles on the trailer. I mean, 2, not 1, but 2. I tore the trailer all to pieces.
Me and my dad both carry a spare set of wheel bearings in the door pocket of our truck. His is in his toolbox, but mine's been in the door pocket because that's just kind of a running joke. One time when I was a teenager, my dad had a hot rod, and we were taking it to Mobile to a Mopar car show at the USS Alabama they were having down there. Mopar is at the battleship is what they called that. And my dad had a 72 Plymouth Duster that we took down there for a car show. But on the way, he had a blowout on the trailer, and the tire blew out, and it kind of hooked the rim, or it hooked the tire hooked the back of the fender, and that was built so rigid that it just shock loaded all the wheel studs. It just broke the wheel off of all the wheel studs, and I can remember seeing that wheel fly past the truck up into the woods, and going down the interstate. And so we had to unload the trailer or unload the car, and my dad drove the car and I drove the truck and trailer to the next exit where we could get some wheel studs and some wheel bearings put in the trailer because it needed those as well. And we were just really lucky that we were able to find a place that was open that late afternoon that could help us out. And since that day, my dad has carried a few spare lug nuts and a set of wheel bearings in the door pocket just about of his truck. And that was probably 15 or 20 years ago, just about now too.
Wow. Well, people just don't appreciate what kind of challenges you face, equipment, and the farmer's got to know how to fix everything and deal with everything, plus his crops. So it's quite a skill base it takes to run a farm. So you've got a lot of the requisite skills to do just about anything there, Jesse. So a little study and you can make it into aerospace. You already, you could be involved in the production of plants and facilities with your kind of background working in steel mills. SpaceX is moving their operations more and more toward offshore rigs, and that's what I really think they need to do because of the explosive potential of those boosters. They have. I wouldn't want to be launching those things near communities like Boca Chica, to be honest, because this is going to have twice as the full up Starship with the booster underneath it, the super heavy booster, which would go underneath it. This is the Starship. That has twice as much fuel as a Saturn V or an N1 rocket. An N1 rocket, when one of them blew up, threw debris for 6 miles. And Boca Chica is like 2 miles from the launch pad there. But they're going to go to those offshore platforms. I think that's a good thing.
I do too. I think it'll be pretty cool. One of the things Elon said a few years ago that I thought was, really, really just beyond the time was we need to look at rockets the same way we look at airplanes. If we had to build a 747 airplane, if we could only fly it and land it one time, nobody would be buying plane tickets. And so the idea to try to get rockets to that level of reusability, or some good level of reusability that will get the cost for space travel and exploration down to where it can be affordable for more companies to get involved with. I just think that's one of the biggest advancements that we've had in the space industry in the last 50, 60 years is just being able to reuse those rockets and being able to do it at a very rapid pace. I think now they've got 7 or 8 different Falcon 9s that have flown more than 5 or 6 times each.
Right. Now, the truth of the matter is he didn't invent that saying, but he made it practical. He's the guy who made it work, because that's a very challenging thing to do, because there's so much demands on rockets, the efficiency, the rocket equation is so unforgiving. For him to be able to finagle all that out and make it work has been an extreme accomplishment. And he's been able to do that because he's been willing to, out of his own pocket, take the risk of blowing up a whole lot of rockets, the trial and error it takes to learn these lessons. He stuck in there and done it. A lot of people, a lot of organizations, the outside investors wouldn't stomach for that. But he's been able to finance his own and keep going. And that's what made the difference. And that's gave him the ability to break through that and come out on the other side, which makes him a clear industry leader. And now everybody's chasing what he set up and trying to copy it. But hopefully he'll always be a step ahead for a while. But hypersonics may be another game changer when you can actually fly an aircraft into space.
Well, he's talking about the ability to use just Starship just for intercontinental travel and be anywhere in the world in an hour and fly any cargo around the world in an hour. And so that kind of commitment, I just kind of admire that about him. I mean, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about him for many various different reasons, but just the idea that, look, all we have to do is invent the solutions to these problems. All throughout history, we've just invented solutions for the current problems. And right now, just getting space exploration and transportation down to where we can afford to send up the things that we want to, I think that's just one of the biggest pushes we've had in the last 50 or 60 years. And I think it's a really exciting time to be alive. As a species, I think it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, if we don't wipe ourselves out.
Yeah, if we don't get hit by an asteroid, there was my wife will laugh if she's watching this YouTube live stream or if she watches it later. But there was an interesting little video that I watched on YouTube a few weeks ago, and it was about a journey to the end of time. And it's, what's the universe going to be like in trillions of years? What happens eventually when all of the stars die out and things just go dark and cold and stuff like that. And so, when you hear Elon talk about a future where, humans are a space-faring civilization and we're out there among the stars, that just seems more interesting than a future where we're not. And then you realize how small of a little blip of time we are when you consider how old or when time actually started. That's an interesting thing to think about, is where can we go as a species? How far into the universe can we get? And I know, some people may think that's, crazy or outlandish to think about, or that you should just focus on this planet and not leaving it. But I do think it's a pretty interesting time to be alive. And with the Starship, I mean, I read yesterday, even with the first rendering of 29 Raptors, it will be the most powerful machine man has ever assembled. And to me, that's just cool. Today, I posted on my Facebook page that that crane they got set up today to do the next 2 lifts for the Starship Tower. I think it's already one of the tallest cranes in the world. And that's just really cool to me that they've got that thing set up. And another thing that's interesting about that is they're constructing this stuff now. Think of how far advanced their plans are. They've got things that are contracts signed and ready to go that we can't even imagine right now, and we just don't know about it because they haven't released them yet. And so that kind of lets you know how serious and how careful and methodical they are about these processes, and how committed they are to seeing it through to the end goal, which is to just make space exploration affordable for everybody.
There you go. Well, my plan is one of the reasons I'm doing the aquaponics and the worms and the gardening and the greenhouses is I'm really developing key technologies for a habitat concept I have. A habitat, which is a home you can live out of, make a living out of, and grow your food out of, that would be extremely sustainable here on Earth. It would be storm proof for the most part, just about proof to anything except for flooding. But you could work that too. And it would be, you wouldn't hardly need any external energy outputs at all for this home. You could produce all the energy you need within it. You could take water from the roof, even in the desert, from a home like this. It's kind of like it's in some ways has some similarities to an Earthship, but it's way bigger concept than that. So it's more than just the Earthship on steroids. It's a different concept, but it has some similarities to it. But the cool thing about it is this type of habitat works great in space too. Moon, Mars, and I plan to even put them inside. I've got a concept for putting them inside of mile-wide floating structures in the atmosphere of Venus. So you have to check that out sometime. And I've got an architect that's drawn the house out for me, and I need to do a video on that. Then later do another video on my Galactic Grace channel about doing this on Venus. So
it's funny you mentioned that. We're talking about SpaceX, but I didn't know until recently Blue Origin published a lot of those kind of ideas a year or two before SpaceX was founded. I didn't know that until I've just watched so many documentaries about the companies.
Your audio's going, something's happened to your audio there.
You still got me there?
Yeah, just barely. It's not coming through well.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Well, I don't know what would have happened. I think everything's still the same. I may have a mic that I can try.
Oh no.
I think I'll be able to hear you if I put this in. I don't have my side. Hey, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, very much, very good.
I can't hear you.
Oh no.
let me get my sound on. Well, there's probably a really bad delay if we do it through the computer too.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I didn't know that Blue Origin published a lot of those renderings and drawings about the huge, floating, spinning, artificial enclosures and stuff 20 years ago. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, that goes way before them, my friend.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's just, that's possible someday, man. We're one step closer, We got to figure out how to get up there and start building first. So I just think it's really interesting. It's really an exciting time, I think, to be alive if you're interested in that industry, for sure.
So Jesse, I started a chapter of the L5 Society in North Carolina in 1979, I believe. It was 1980. And I started another chapter in Alaska in 1981. And I started the Huntsville, Alabama L5 Society in 1983. And L5 Society was a society that was formed for the purpose of disbanding. Yeah, we started a society that formed for the purpose of disbanding, but the objective was to disband in a colony in space.
Oh yeah.
And so so the cylinders were really brought forth. There was some guy named Bernal that came up with some ideas there, but Gerard K. O'Neill popularized that idea. I had the good fortune of meeting him in 1981, but he started an organization called the Space Studies Institute that I was a member of, and the L5 Society formed to promote that idea. The Space Frontier Foundation promotes that idea. So that way predates our good friend Bezos in that area, but Bezos has spoken at International Space Development Conference. So these are concepts. In fact, I came up with a concept and entered it into a contest back in 89 or maybe it was 88. I think it was 88. For taking space shuttle external tanks and putting them together in a paddle wheel type of situation, because if you walk along the axis when they're rotating in the paddle wheel, you don't have something called Coriolis force to deal with. So on the basis of about 14 shuttle launches, I could have had this concept, a 100-person space station. So I thought that might be a good evolutionary step toward some of these other rotating space habitats. So I've been working space habitat design for a long time. I have worked space station quite a bit in my experience too. So I've had quite a history of these things, that and rockets. So
I met some customers at Madison City last weekend when we were there, and it was a husband and a wife, and both were flight controllers for the International Space Station at Marshall. I thought that was really cool that they both got into the same industry and were doing the exact same job on the same schedule, and I just think that was really cool that they did that together. That was interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, we have what's called the HOSC, the Huntsville Operations Center in Huntsville, where we control space station payloads. And I've been there many times. So it's kind of like a mission control, but just for space station payloads. Yeah. So it's a fun place. It's an interesting place. I actually interviewed for a job in that place once, but I didn't like the idea of working the swing shifts they had. It was some crazy shifts you have to work when you do that kind of work, and just wasn't what I wanted to do. So, yeah. But it was an interesting prospect. I have worked space station payloads from both the inside and outside of space station, and payloads for the Space Launch System. But I mostly worked on robotic systems integration on the International Space Station, or when it was called Space Station Freedom. And I've done a lot of power and data system work in the NODES program of the space station. So I kind of been all over the map of the International Space Station, inside and out. But yeah, it's an interesting project. So space stations do interest me quite a bit, especially this big term space habitats. So we've been all over the map here, from the farm to space.
Yeah, and farming in space. Yeah, we've been all over. We've been in a wide variety of dimensions there.
That's right. Well, you got to grow food in space if you're going to live there.
Yeah,
and you'll have a leg up on that. That's why I showed you that poster. For anybody just now joining, I'll show the poster one more time.
Interestingly enough, that's what Elon's brother happens to be into, is the hydroponic type stuff. I seen a recent documentary about him.
Right.
Very convenient for him to be designing these hyper portable, hyper efficient, labs that you can grow all these greens and stuff in, and that can be, scaled to a food production system and microgravity and things like that. So very interesting of him to have such a niche when his brother owns a rocket company trying to get humans into space. I think definitely the first food grown in outer space and consumed and harvested, and then the first food grown on either our moon or another planet would be from his brother's business. I think that's pretty cool.
Might be. Hey, I wouldn't mind taking a turn at it. Maybe you too.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Well, we've been on here for 2 hours now, almost.
Well, I haven't seen that long.
I know.
Been a lot of fun.
Hey, yeah, maybe we'll do another one in the not too distant future and tell us how it works as you're scaling down, and how it works as you're going into your new thing. And if you get into aerospace, especially if you go someplace where where you can do some on-site video for me, like some of the launches, then we could work something out with the Galactic Greg's channel. I definitely.
Well, I'm 100% going to Boca Chica for the SN20
Yeah.
or the SN16, whichever one they get to first. 100% going for that. That is a bucket list item. I don't want to miss it. Being down there when they launched the most powerful machine that man's ever assembled. Me as a mechanic, kind of a grease monkey, gear nerd, whatever. I really think that's a cool thing to be a part of and see there on site. And I can't wait to have a live stream going for that. That'll be really cool. We've got some cool camera equipment that would make that a really cool live stream that whole day down there.
Yeah. Well, having burned a few of my own rocket motors, I could definitely go for that myself. If I could swing it schedule wise, that's always my biggest problem. I got so much going on. If I could do it, I will. But if not, hey, if I got you down there doing video for me, that would be awesome. So,
I'm 100% going. I don't care if I have to fly, drive, hitchhike, whatever. I'm going for that one. That's
all right. You might be a Galactic Greg's video man.
Sweet. Well, Greg, it's been good, man.
All right. So I want to say thank you for the interview tonight. It's been a lot of fun, and we definitely have plowed some ground here on Earth. And
we really have. It's been very enjoyable. I like these types of discussions where we can dive in, really heavy on some things and kind of skip around. I really like these discussions, and I look forward to helping you out again on the next one.
All right, very good. So I want to thank all the mods that's been supporting the channel. I've not had as much time to watch the chat room as I usually do. And I want to thank, I got a super chat I noticed. I appreciate that, and I appreciate everyone that's just coming in here and watching. I just want to thank everybody for that. And once again, if you're in the area and you got a chance to buy from Jesse and support him, by all means do so. And wherever you're at, if you're not growing your own food, definitely support your local farmers. Buy local, buy also from tradesmen that are local, not the big companies. If you're getting an HVAC fixed or electrical fixed, go for the smaller shops. Those guys are, they're having a tough time these days competing with the bigger shops. And I think you get a lot more quality. And of course, interview the people you're hiring always to make sure, you got a good feeling about them. But buy local as much as you can, wherever you're at. And just hang in there, guys. We got some tough times coming, but there's also some excitement in the future too. And Jesse definitely gave us a taste of that tonight. So if we can keep this world from blowing itself to smithereens, then we've got a bright future.
I think so too.
All right, Jesse. Once again, thank you, and everybody here. I want to thank y'all for watching. I'm going to end this live cast here, but you take care, and we'll catch you later.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Have a good night, man.